Love, love, until I feel the breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Frances Beaumont. She's the Labour DLP candidate for Western Victoria. Hello, Frances.
Hello.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's great. So how have you become so passionate about politics? Have you got a faith, or is that what sort of started that?
Certainly I'm a cradle Catholic and grown up in a Catholic home, but also a home where politics was important, and therefore I've always had an interest, and I think the politics of the land really informs how people act in the nation, and I think our faith needs to inform that.
Yes, I hear that your parents met each other in politics.
Yes, they did. My mother had been a nun and had left the order and been released from her vows. So she prayed to St. Joseph for a good husband. And there she found a bachelor when she returned to the office she'd formerly worked at. And they were happily married till both their deaths.
Wow. And what's your father's name?
My father was Paul Wilde.
Yes, I think I might have heard of him in the 80s. Would he have been doing politics in the 80s?
Well, he was certainly involved in the rural movement and in the National Civic Council. So it was more not politics in terms of parliament, but politics in terms of pressure groups.
Wow. And what's the National Civic Council?
The National Civic Council is an organisation that tries to influence policy by bringing the information that they've gathered that informs on what maybe the unintended consequences of a particular policy might be. I mean, I can't speak for the NCC, although I grew up in an NCC household. I've was exposed at the dinner table to the conversations and the thinking that was there. So distributive economic policy was always important, and the way that society is ordered, that should be based on Christian thinking.
Fantastic. And you're also one of the values of DLP, Labour DLP, is pro-life too, isn't it?
Yes, the Labour DLP is a party that in our constitution it states that we support life from conception until natural death.
Wow. And what's your background, your profession background?
I've been a nurse for 30 years and I've been working in various capacities in that. At the moment I'm a community nurse, so visiting people in their home, but I've also worked in oncology and in palliative care. So I've, 30 years you get to see quite a bit as a nurse.
Wow, you have a lot of life experience and seen tragedy and also seen the good times of family life, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, one of the great privileges of nursing is you get to walk beside people and be part of, sometimes it's a very significant journey in oncology and treating people in day oncology and also in palliative care. So I think we can deliver very good palliative care if we're given the resources to do it. Yes,
that's wonderful to hear about the good care in palliative. And did you have any particular experiences that have made you pro-life in your nursing?
I don't think particularly. I certainly have been aware that some of my patients have been concerned by the news of the legislation that was pending allowing euthanasia. And when you're looking after elderly people in the community, some of them are really quite concerned to see this legislation foreshadowed. And it's to be enacted within the next 6 months. So it was one of my motivators for standing for this election.
Yeah, I a pro-life background as a nurse, because I used to work at St. Vincent's, and I do remember, something where I was on night duty and there was a nurse I worked with. I was a student nurse then that was not pro-life, but because she was from the agency, and it really struck me when she said to me, "Oh, let's put this bugger out of his misery," and she gave him the highest dose of morphine she could within the range. And I was like I was shocked,
Yeah.
and then I looked so shocked. She said to me, "Geraldine, don't worry, you won't have to clean the patient. We'll time it so that the early morning duties will have to clean him." And I said, no, that's not what I'm worried about. I'm just worried about his family. They're coming to visit him tomorrow, and being a student nurse, I felt powerless. So she did inject the patient, and they came saying, "Oh, where is he?" And basically he had died from an overdose of morphine because he wasn't in pain.
Yeah.
But anyway, that was my early days. So
That's unethical. That's
yes.
that's just wrong.
Yeah. So so you've really stand a good chance of a lot of experience for a future politician or member of parliament. Oh, you're going for the upper house, is that right?
Yes, yes. So it's a big region, the Western Victorian region. It's basically Ballarat right through to the border. So,
Wow.
because there is only 8 upper house seats, 4 metropolitan and 4 regional. So,
Yes. Well, I will definitely be praying.
thank you. Your prayers would be much appreciated.
And do you have any children yourself?
Yes, I have a 22-year-old daughter, and she's an absolute delight. And she was born at 24 weeks gestation, so it was a little bit touch and go for a while there, but she's great. She's now 22.
Wow. So and what hospital did you have her?
She was born at Mercy.
Oh wow. I've worked there.
Yeah.
Yes.
They were fantastic in NICU at the Mercy.
Wow. So you've had a lot of experience having a baby premature.
Yep. Yes.
And is your husband shares your same passions?
We have different passions. We disagree on some things. He's not a Catholic. He's an artist, and he's a wonderful man, but he doesn't have the same faith that I have.
Yeah, it's great because it seems that you can accept people of different varieties of values. So that's wonderful.
Yeah.
On that note, we'll go for a break. You've been watching Spirit of Life. We'll be back after the break.
Blow till I hear much breath of thy spirit blowing in me. Blow, blow, blow till I hear much breath of thy spirit blowing in me.
Hello, welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Frances Beaumont. She's the Labour DLP candidate for Western Victoria. Welcome.
Thank you.
You were talking about your parents being involved in politics and then yourself. Has your journey been into politics started with volunteer work, or how did you come into politics?
Yes, it did, because I'm on the board of Priceless Life in Brisbane, and it's an organisation that works with families and women who have either in the past or currently have a problem pregnancy. So it's an organisation that is really important in helping people who experience maybe an unexpected pregnancy or have had one in the past and now have post-abortion grief. Men can have post-abortion grief, for example, and also a pregnancy might be unexpected, or there might be difficulty in conceiving, and so assistance can be helped given to these people in these areas. So that's a voluntary role which is really important to me. I also volunteer as a member of a couple of human research ethics committees because I have an interest in human research and have been a clinical trials nurse. So
That's wonderful. What kind of research have you done?
I have worked as an oncology research nurse and I've also worked as a palliative care research nurse.
Wow, that's fantastic. And with your work, do you has that helped you to create your values? I hear that DLP has a pro-life values.
Yes, the DLP is a party that in our constitution it states that we are pro-life. So anyone who is a member of the DLP has to accept this principle. I'm sure there are many candidates and many MPs who are pro-life in all our parliaments, but the DLP, to my understanding, is unique in that it's stated in our constitution, and so it is mandated that we must adhere to our constitution and vote in a way that is supportive of life.
Wow, so it's all the other parties that were pro-life specific have not sort of publicly don't exist anymore.
There have been a lot of minor parties that have disappeared in recent years, but that's not to say that individual members of parliament are not pro-life, but they may also be sitting beside other members of their own party who are not pro-life.
I see.
So, and as you would be aware, often the life issues do get a conscience vote, which is helpful, but it just means that there might be a block of politicians who are in the same party who vote opposite ways, whereas the public can be totally assured with members of parliament who are DLP members that they will vote for life always.
And you involved in a Masters of Social Work.
Yes, I'm a Masters of Social Work student, and that has been a fabulous journey. I've really enjoyed my studies, and I'm getting close to the end of that, and it's been really interesting. It's clarified my thoughts that I want to be making a difference at the macro level. Hence, when I was tapped on the shoulder and asked if I would consider being a candidate, it seemed like a marvellous opportunity to further that view.
So you've been in the front line being a nurse and helping the poor, doing on the micro level. So now you would like to change policies and or make policies that help social justice, I imagine.
Yeah, there are many social justice issues that I'm concerned about. Asylum seekers is another one. I'm a volunteer for the House of Welcome, and that is important too. I think we've got to respect human dignity. It's so central, and if we are saying that some people are more entitled than others, I think society is not going in the right direction.
So your one of your values is that people are precious from, would you say, the womb to the tomb as such?
Yes, absolutely. I believe we should be looking after people from conception right through till natural death.
Wow, that's fantastic. Being a pro-lifer myself, of course. And what about things like economics, like finances and things like that? What are the policies of Labor DLP?
Labor DLP is a party that believes that in a distributive economic policy, so we believe that capital should be working for the workers rather than the workers working for capital. So we believe that that wealth should be distributed widely through society rather than concentrated in a few hands.
Oh, that's fantastic, because they say that 2% of the world owns 80% of the world. I don't know if those statistics are still, but that's fantastic that there's more sharing. Yeah,
we would really like to see that turned on its head and not see capital concentrated in a few hands. And seeing people having an influence, even if, so that I think everyone needs to have a say.
What about people who are worried about tax?
In some ways, if you've got enough money to be worried about how much tax you're paying, you've probably got
A lot
more
of
than you
money.
need. And
Good point.
our tax policy has to be equitable and it has to be fair, but it also needs to be taking into account the fact that there are things that society needs to provide.
Yes. On that note, we'll go for a break. You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us and we'll be back after the break.
Go till I hear much breath of the Spirit flowing in me. Blow, till I hear much breath of the Spirit flowing in me.
Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Frances Beaumont. She's a Labour DLP candidate for Western Victoria. Welcome back, Frances.
Thanks, Geraldine.
What do you think of the changes in abortion law about 2008?
It was the 10th anniversary of it this year.
Wow.
And Victoria has the most permissive abortion law in the world. Babies can be aborted up till term in Victoria, which is really concerning to me because I don't think we're offering women adequate support if we offer abortion as the only solution to an unplanned pregnancy.
Wow, it really hits you when you think, you being a nurse and me being a nurse.
Yeah.
Did you hear about stories where there were some babies who, because when you say term, it means like the full term, aren't you? Like 38, 40 weeks pregnancy.
Yeah.
That means they can be aborted? And is that with permission of doctors, or how is it?
There is some regulation around it, but nevertheless, it still is possible for viable babies to be aborted.
When you say viable, what does that mean?
Babies that would survive outside the uterus. So a baby, if for some reason for the mother's health she needed to not be pregnant and maybe after 24 weeks, the baby could be delivered safely and cared for and the mother could receive the medical help that she needed to receive, but the baby could still survive. And I think that's really important. I mean, and I think it shows a lack of compassion when women aren't given this option. I think that women need to know that they're not in a position of choosing between their own health and their baby. It's said to people that in some cases that abortion is the only solution. And if we don't have policies that support women and give them the space to make a genuine, informed choice, if they're only told of one option, they're not making a choice with adequate information. And to me, that's not right. It's very important that the whole gambit of choices are given to women.
I see. It gives about women's informed choice.
Yeah, informed choice is really important. And if someone's pushing an ideology, the choice is not there for women sometimes. And I really feel for women who maybe have not had enough information and have chosen an abortion and then regret it later. And I would, if that's happened to anyone, I would encourage them to receive some counselling. There are many, many services that offer post-abortive grief counselling. And I think that's really important that women avail themselves of that.
Yes, and you being a nurse, you've had that compassion to reach out to women.
Yeah, well, even I've had women tell me of a miscarriage that they've had as a young woman. And a woman told me recently, a woman in her 80s, of her distress of the child she miscarried decades ago.
Yes.
And I asked her what that child's name was.
Yeah.
And she told me she hadn't thought to name the child at the time, that she was encouraged to sort of just brush it under the carpet as if it was nothing. And she was so delighted, I think it might have been, you know, even 60 years later, to give her child a name.
Yeah. Yeah, so that would help in the grieving.
Yeah, and I think it's important.
Yeah, and are there any things that you're passionate about, values in your work as a candidate and possibly in the upper house being a member of parliament?
Yes, I am. I think society needs to work for everyone. I think our parliament needs to be representative of everyone, and that's very important to me, that it's a fair society, that our trade practices are fair to farmers, that we are not having global trade agreements that are overruling our quarantine laws and putting our farming industry at risk.
Yes, it's very sad what is happening in the, and they say high suicide rate farmers and all these sort of things.
Yeah, that's a mental health issue that we're not allocating enough to. I think we need to be not chasing the mighty dollar.
Yes.
And putting the dollar before people.
And there's high drug use and ice and things like that.
And that's a mental health issue. We're not giving adequate resources to mental health.
Do you believe in funding more welfare organisations?
Absolutely. I think our social housing has to be meeting the need of our society. We're clearly not doing enough when we have the number of people sleeping on the street that we do. It's the vulnerable that always pay the price when the dollar is chased ahead of human dignity.
Yes, there's some fear tactics where they take people off the streets and they put more money into prisons. And they say that in prison there's more people with mental health there and drug and alcohol problems than the real murderers,
Yeah.
I think 90-something%. Where to from now? I hear that you're involved in March for Life.
Yes, the March for the Babies is the 13th of October in Melbourne. So it'll be the 10th anniversary this year, as we said, of the 2008 changes to the abortion law. So it'll be really great to see a great turnout for that. We'll be marching under the banner of Labour for Life.
Wow. Well, I wish you all the best for what happens in politics.
Thank you.
And God bless you.
Thank you.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Thank you. Goodbye and God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit.